Hi, my name is Umar. Welcome to this new video. In this video, we're going to be going over an introduction to HTML. HTML is basically stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's basically the bare bones, the structure of a HTML web page. And essentially, the whole web runs on HTML. So if you think about like the heading or a paragraph or an image, they're all rendered HTML code, okay? So what are we going to do in this series? We're going to be building a web application, okay? And we're going to, make it really fun to learn, and we're going to dive straight in. We're going to focus more on case studies instead of like going through, definitions and explanations about things. And we want you to learn it as quickly as possible and to learn, to have as much fun as possible whilst you're learning. So if that sounds great, if that sounds like fun, then continue watching and follow along. So before we get started, I'm just going to pull up some notes that I have here. So I'm going to be looking down at my notes. As I mentioned, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's used to structure a web page. Okay, the HTML has open tags and has closing tags, okay? So if you want to structure a paragraph, you would have an opening paragraph tag before your text and a closing paragraph tag after your text. And there are also some self-closing tags for specific elements like images. Images do not have an opening and closing tag. I mentioned paragraph tags. We have header tags. So if you want to create a header, you put your text in between the header tags. And lastly, like I mentioned before, there are image tags. There are so many other tags that you can sort of add to your web page. We're going to be going over them as we do this tutorial or the series. So if you want to know more about HTML or what tags you should be using, you can go to w3school/HTML. The link will be down in the description, and you can just take a look through it, and it will show you all the different tags and things like that, okay? So I'm using VS Code, and VS Code basically is a code editor that I use. I think it's really cool. It's got a lot of helper functions and features, IntelliSense, for you to sort of supercharge your development. Go to VS Code, go to the website, code.visualstudio.com/download, and download the version for the operating system you're using. So I've got Visual Studio Code open, and you can go to your folder by clicking File, Open Folder, and then selecting the folder that you want to work within. Once you have the folder open, in the left-hand side, in the Explorer, you can click on the new file icon to create a new file. And we're going to call this index.html. It's always good to have an index.html. So when you go onto a website, the very first page is usually called index.html, and the browser reads that first and renders that as a default page. So what are we going to do? We're going to create the structure of our HTML page, okay? And Visual Studio allows you to do that by pressing the exclamation character, pressing enter, and then you can see that we have a structure. Don't be scared about this. A lot of the things are this sort of standard tags. The tags that you have to worry about are the head tag and the body tag. So in the head tag, we have some other things, some metadata in here. I'm not going to explain it at the moment, but what we do want to update is the title tag. So remember, keep the HTML tags as they are, and you're just writing in between. So you're writing your content in between, okay? So we're just going to write the title of our application. We're just going to call it Choosify. Literally just made that up. Okay, so it's going to be a web application, and we're going to be able to choose between two different images, whether we like them or we don't like them. So, and then we'll be displaying a list of images that we can sort of play with, all right? So within the body tag is everything that you see on the page, okay? So if I go to google.com, so everything that you see within the web page is in the body tag. Okay, so the title essentially is what you see on top here in the tab is basically the title of the page. So in this case, it will be Google. And then everything else is in the body tag. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a box, and then inside of that box, we can add content in that box. Okay. So to create a box, we use the div tag. Okay. So that's an opening, opening tag and a closing tag, as you can see there. I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see a bit better. I'm going to get rid of this. Right. And then I'll make this a bit smaller so that you can see. Great stuff. And then what I will do is I will, I will open up the index file in our browser by dragging it over. So we'll be able to see the changes that we make, okay? So what can we do? So within the container, we're going to have a header. So let's use a h1 tag, and in there we'll add the name of our application. So Choosify, and then click File, Save, or press Control S, and then refresh, and you can see that we have the name of our application, or we have our heading. Okay, and then we can have a paragraph. So I'm using Emmet in Visual Studio, so I can use a shortcut, okay, to write my text. If that's confusing, just write a normal paragraph tag like this. Okay, so that's how you write your paragraph tag, and you will add your content in between. But I can use Emmet like this. Okay, so there you go. That's your paragraph. And then if we refresh the browser, you can see that we have our text there. Okay, so that's really good. Okay, so next we're going to add 2 images. Okay, so let's do that. We got our image tag. So this image tag is a self-closing tag. So you can just add a / and a angle bracket there. And then you add the source to your image. Okay, so you can really get an image from anywhere. You could go to google.com. Let's just type in pizza, and we're just going to steal any image of pizza, basically. So basically what we're going to have is we're going to have 2 images, and then you can choose whether you like pizza or ice cream, or I don't know, bread, or I don't know, or cereal. So that's what the application is going to be. It's going to show a number of images. Okay, so I'm just going to be lazy and copy the image from Google. So if you right click, you can open image in new tab, and then copy the URL to the image. Just paste it in there. Paste it in between the quotes in the source attribute. So once we save that, we go back here and then refresh. You can see that now we have our image. Okay, so don't worry for now. Obviously the image is very large. The text is not styled. It doesn't look very nice. But we're going to style it with CSS. What CSS allows us to do is to add a styling to our HTML page, to change the width of something, change the height of something, change the color. So yeah, so we're going to be doing that as well. Right, so next let's add another image by adding another image tag and a source attribute. by typing src, and then in the quote we're going to add our image, but before that we're going to close off our tag, and then let's find another image of something else. So let's type in ice cream and find a nice photo of ice cream. I'm going to right click, open a new tab, and then copy that and paste it in there. Okay, so now if you go back to our web page, we should have an image of pizza and an image of some ice cream. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some style to this. Okay, so the way that we add styles is with CSS, like I mentioned, and you can add that within the head tag of your web page. So first we need to add a style tag, and within the style tag we're going to add our CSS. Okay, so add our style tag, and then inside we can add our CSS, right? So what I'm going to do is, we have our box, and this box is called a div. So anytime you want to add a container or a box of some sort, you just use a div, and then you can refer to that in your CSS to style it. Okay, so we say div, and then we use these curly brackets, and then within the curly brackets we can now add our styles. So we want to add a width property to make the width of it smaller. So let's say we want to make it 90% width, or yeah, 90% width. Okay, so let's refresh the page and see what happens there. So at the moment we can't see anything happening to the page, so let's add a border around the entire box. So we add a 1 pixel border, and then the style of the border will be a solid color or a solid line, and we'll just make it black. Okay, so I'm going to click save by holding down Control and S on my keyboard, then refresh, and you can see that we have our border there. But right now our image goes outside of the boundaries of our app. So let's fix that. So just outside these curly brackets here, let's add the image tag. Let's refer to the image tag. Okay, so here we can add a width, not windows, width of maybe 100%. Okay, so that it extends 100% of the parent, and the parent box is our div. Okay, or the parent container. So when I refresh that, then everything now looks good, except we actually want the images to be beside one another, so you can choose one or the other. Okay, so let's, instead of it being 100%, let it be 50%. Okay, so let's refresh that now. Okay, right. So now the images are smaller. How do we get them to go side by side? We could use a display property. So a display property changes the way that the element is displayed on the page, whether the element is a full width element or a block level element, which expands the full width of its container, or is it an inline element? Does it actually wrap on a single line? And we want it to be all in both images to be on a single line, so we use a display property of inline block. Okay, so it's not a block level element, it's an inline block element. What does that mean? It means that it's gonna have both of elements on one line. So let's refresh. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe I need to reduce the width of this to 40%. And there you go. So I've reduced the width of it to allow it to allow both images to be on that one line. Okay, maybe we can increase the size just slightly. So it's not going to be 50%, it'll be 49%. Let's see if that works. So there you go. And I think it's probably because there's this little border between the two images. So that's absolutely fine. We can see that these images are slightly different size-wise. I want them to be the same size, so let's add a height to them. So we can add a height here, and maybe let's have them 200 pixels. So pixels is the measurement that we use, like you have inches, you have centimeters and whatnot. In digital design or computers are measure in pixels, so that's why we use pixels. So if I save that and refresh, we can see that the images have been resized, but now the images are squashed because we've reduced the height drastically. So we have to add another property called object fit to make sure that the images aren't squashed. So let's use object fit, and we use cover. Okay, so cover just means that it enables the image to cover the proportion or the dimensions of the image. So there you have it. Probably could make the image a bit taller, so let's use 400 pixels and refresh. So that looks quite nice. Maybe 300. Cool. Now let's add let's add a button. So maybe you want to select ice cream, or you want to select the pizza, right? So let's add a button beneath each of these images so we can select one or the other. Okay, so let's do that now. So underneath the image we can add a button, so we add a button tag, and inside we will say pizza, and then we add another button, and in here we will choose ice cream. Okay, so let's save that and refresh. Now we have our two buttons, and they're side by side because these buttons are interpreted by the browser as inline elements, and that means that they actually stack beside one another instead of above one another. Okay, so we have our two buttons. One thing that I want to do is I want everything to be in the center, okay, including our div. Okay, so let's do that. So in the body, we're gonna make everything displayed to the center. We're gonna text align everything to the center. So let's add our body tag, and inside we're gonna say text align center. So now everything should move to the center. Let's refresh, and you can see that everything is in the center. The images are in the center, and everything's in the center, except that we have this box and it's not in the center of the page. So how can we fix that? So remember I said that with block level elements, they span the width of the container, except for when you add a width property to it. And it has specific characteristics. It doesn't function like text. If you use an inline block element, it functions like text. So you can use text align center with it. So for this div, if we add display inline block, to it, what happens is it will function as text, and it will respond to the text align center on the body. Okay, so let's add that now. So we can add display inline block. If I save that and refresh, as you see now, the box is in the center of the page. So you can imagine that this is an application, and you have like some images. You can choose ice cream or pizza, and you click on pizza, and then it selects pizza as a preferred sort of choice. And then maybe another set of food comes in, and then we can choose that. So obviously that functionality is added with JavaScript, but this is just a very nice way of sort of just getting the HTML down and some basic CSS styling. Okay, what else can we do now? We can add some buttons. For instance, if we want to close the app, we can add more buttons to close the application, or we can add buttons to other pages like settings pages, or so there's so much things you could do with it. There are a lot of elements on this site, W3 Schools. You can add more elements to it if you like. But before we wrap up this video, I'm going to style this button. Okay, so in our style, we can add button. And maybe let's give it a nice background. So let's say background, it's going to be light blue. And we're going to say border, it's going to be 1 pixel, like we mentioned, the solid line. And let's see if we have dark blue. Yeah, let's refresh to see what happens. So that's nice. And then we're gonna, let's actually make it dark blue background. That'll be cool. And then the border can be dark as well. And then the color, look at this. If I add the color dark blue, it's all gonna be, you're not gonna see the text. But if I remove the background and say none and refresh, you can see now there's no background and we have that color. So that's pretty cool. So it looks very minimal. We can add one last property. We can add padding, and padding enables you to add space between the text and the border. Okay, so we have padding, and we can add 8 pixels. So let's refresh. So as you can see, we've added more space between the text and the border, so the button appears bigger. Okay, so that's it for this video. That's just a basic HTML structure of your page. There are tons more tags to use, but these are just basic stuff. Going through this tutorial, we can explore adding more features to this application. We can add more HTML structure to it, explore alignment, explore attributes and stuff like that. And then we can start wiring up with JavaScript, adding some functionality with it, which will be really cool as well. So that maybe will be another series, but it will be the same application. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, do give a thumbs up and to let me know that you've enjoyed it, and I can continue on with this series to give me more motivation to sort of continue on. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.